Meta is continuing to normalize anti-LGBTQ hatred for profit at the expense of its users and true freedom of expression.
LGBT activists and alphabet people in the Wi-Fi password movement are crashing out. They are losing it over free speech. Basically, we talked about this yesterday, but if you missed out on that episode, well, Meta just announced via Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook and Instagram, Threads, the other platforms they own, that they're updating their policies to allow for more free speech, even things that some people consider hate speech. And the LGBT activist community, the left-wing kind of predominant community, is not taking this well. They are actually kind of melting down. Here's how Pink News, the left-wing LGBT website, covered this development.
Here's what Meta's new rules mean for LGBTQ plus people. On Tuesday, the 7th of January, the company revealed its new moderation policies and practices. Under the section on hateful conduct, it now says, "We do allow allegations of mental illness or abnormality when based on gender or sexual orientation, given political and religious discourse about transgenderism and homosexuality, and common non-serious usage of words such as weird." Meta will also allow content that advocates for sex or gender-based exclusion from spaces commonly limited by sex or gender, such as restrooms, sports, and specific schools. In response to the new moderation policies, GLAAD President and CEO Sarah Kate Ellis said, "Meta is continuing to normalize anti-LGBTQ hatred for profit at the expense of its users and true freedom of expression."
And I wanted to see what prominent LGBT influencers were saying, so I went over to that left-wing echo chamber, Blue Sky, to see what they were posting, and oh boy, they're not coping well with the notion that people online might be more free to say things they don't like. Jessie Gender, the prominent leftist trans YouTuber, just tweeted with no attached context, but I think it's pretty fair to guess what Jessie's talking about. Meta. Jessie added in a follow-up tweet, "It's also worth noting the fact that Meta at the same time has changed their policies to allow women to be referred to as household items, rolled back diversity initiatives, and allowed anti-trans rhetoric on their platform showcase how racism, anti-trans hate, and sexism all come hand in hand." I mean, this is just not the bar that Jessie thought it was. Like, obviously, updating your policies to allow for more offensive speech is going to apply to multiple categories of offensive speech, not just one. But Jessie was not the only trans activist losing it online after this news. Somebody named Alejandro Caraballo, who's a very prominent trans activist, wrote on Blue Sky, "Meta is pure evil and deserves to be wiped off the face of the planet." Oh, that seems like a normal reaction and not at all unhinged. They removed all restrictions on content targeting protected characteristics. An example, hate speech. That's actually not true. They didn't remove all restrictions. Alejandra continued, "Anyone working there is complicit. You are enabling this. You will have blood on your hands." Oh my God, give me a break. God forbid you work at a company and you are enabling people being allowed to express themselves, even in ways that some people find offensive, which is a human right. Well, what? And they do this all the time. They try to say, "You have blood on your hands." It's like an emotional guilt trip to try to bully you into agreeing with them. Otherwise, you're somehow a murderer. No, I'm sorry. But like, you and your internal sense of self should never be so susceptible to what other people think that other people's words can hurt you like this or cause you physical harm or cause you to harm yourself, which is what Alejandro is basically implying. Actually, you can walk away from the screen. You can hit the block button. You can sign off and go for a walk. Like, this is up to you. And as an adult, you should have thicker skin than harming yourself because somebody called you mentally ill on Facebook. First off, I mean, if you do harm yourself in any way, I want you to get the help you need. And I have tremendous compassion, and please seek help and don't do anything you will regret. But at the end of the day, like, you are responsible for your own mental health, and you can't let other people's words have this kind of profound effect on you. And if they do, that is ultimately something you need to work on in yourself, because you don't have the emotional resilience of a fully mature adult. And nobody can give you that. And the whole world can't be bubble wrapped enough to protect you from ever having your feelings hurt, nor should it be. And that's the thing. They are particularly upset about certain parts of Meta's changes that we'll get into here. Alejandra tweeted, Meta literally created an LGBTQ exception for calling someone mentally ill as an insult. You can't do it for any other group except LGBTQ people. Wait, but I thought you said they got rid of all their standards and content moderation. Oh, so they didn't. So you lied a minute ago. Good job, Alejandra. And Alejandra attached a screenshot of this new update from the Meta rules. We do allow allegations of mental illness or abnormality when based on gender or sexual orientation, given political and religious discourse around transgenderism and homosexuality, and common non-serious usage of words like weird. The trans activist Erin Reed, who falsely claims to be a journalist, tweeted, or I guess blue skied, if you work at Meta and support LGBTQ people, no, you don't. Yeah, people should quit their jobs because, God forbid, other people can say things that hurt your feelings on the internet. Like, I just have no sympathy for this whatsoever. Like, let me talk about the gay portion, because I'm gay, so it's my truth. They can't even question my ability to just speak on this. If other people on the internet say that being gay makes me mentally ill, I don't really care, honestly, because I don't agree with that. There's no truth value to it. And I don't really care what some weird people out there think about me. Like, I'll just move on with my day. It's not that deep. And I want the ability to express my opinions online, even when those opinions upset or offend people who might think they're hateful. So I have to support that for other people. Like, this is a pretty common sense view that they don't seem to get. These alphabet activists, a lot of their viewpoints, other people think are hateful or evil or bad. And so if we're just going to start having rules that say we ban hate speech, a lot of people hate your speech, babe. And that's what hate speech always means. It's just the speech I hate. There's no actual definition for what's hate speech versus free speech. It's all free speech, even if you hate it. And welcome to the real world. Welcome to being an adult. Just like buckle up, buttercup. Words can't hurt you. The thing where they're so mad about the notion that anybody would ever be able to suggest that being transgender is a mental illness, there's so many problems with this. First and foremost, I thought there was nothing wrong with mental illness. I thought we were destigmatizing mental health, which I support. And I don't like to say that being trans is a mental illness because it feels harsh. Even though we want to remove that stigma, we haven't yet. But it is a mental condition, right? You have gender dysphoria in order to justify transitioning. You have this intense mental health issue with your biological sex. That's what makes transitioning for adults legit. But they're saying that if you say that they're mentally ill, that shouldn't be allowed. That's like gonna kill us or whatever. That's actually the fact that makes actual trans adults needing to transition valid. I'm just confused. These people make no sense. Now, obviously, some people call trans people mentally ill to insult them and demean them. And that is mean. That is unkind. I don't support that. But this is also the real world. And not everyone is nice and not everyone is kind. Sorry, that's just the way the world works. And you do not have a right to emotional safety or comfort really anywhere, but especially on the internet in the public marketplace of ideas. Opinions and ideas and arguments must be able to be aired in a democratic society online in public forums like Facebook, even if they hurt trans people on Blue Sky's feelings. But it's not just activists on the internet. It's the biggest and most well-known and very well-funded and lavish alphabet activist groups that are pushing this same BS, acting like Facebook is committing a hate crime by letting people say words that these people don't like. The president of GLAAD, Sarah Kate Ellis, wrote in a statement posted to Instagram, Zuckerberg's removal of fact-checking programs and industry-standard hate speech policies make Meta's platforms unsafe places for users and advertisers alike. What a condescending view. As if LGBT people are so fragile or emotional toddlers, they need to be coddled and sheltered from words they don't like, or they're not safe. Give me a break. We're people, just like anybody else, with thick skin who can, by and large, handle disagreement or people being mean. And if you can't, that's what the block button is there for. You don't have to censor the whole internet just to curate it for yourself. Like, give me a break. Without these necessary hate speech and other policies, Meta is giving the green light for people to target LGBTQ people, women, immigrants, and other marginalized groups with violence, vitriol, and dehumanizing narratives. Yes, other people do have a right to target groups with vitriol. Like, that just means mean and angry speech and words. That's part of free speech and free expression in a debate. And nobody's talking about violence, okay? And they're doing this dangerous thing where they conflate words with violence. Words are not violence. And you suggesting that is an insult to everybody who's actually been the victim of real violence. Because trust me, they know the difference. Okay, Sarah Kate? They do this intentionally to try to shut down debate. If they can label your speech not just mean words, but violent, they can try to convince people to support censoring you. And potentially justify using violence against you. It's just self-defense. It's just preemptive strike. That's terrifying. And that's a recipe for the complete collapse of a democratic society where people have to be able to speak their minds and say what they believe. And it can't be labeled violence just because it hurts some people's feelings. She continued, with these changes, Meta is continuing to normalize anti-LGBTQ hatred for profit at the expense of its users and true freedom of expression. Fact-checking and hate speech policies protect free speech. Excuse me? What in the Orwell 1984 dystopian gaslighting did I just read? Hate speech policies where they censor people and take down their posts if other people are offended by them protect free expression. How? That's literally the opposite of reality. Your right to free speech doesn't mean a right to stop other people from speaking. And to be clear, when we're talking about Facebook's content moderation decisions, it's not free speech in the First Amendment sense, because that's about government restrictions, but it's about a cultural principle of free speech that exists independent from legal principles. And then sometimes also the government has pressured Facebook to censor certain things, and that does get into the legal territory. But right now we're talking about a cultural ethos of free and open expression and debate and tolerance, the kind of, I may disagree with what you have to say, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it. The kind of spirit of America that we've had culturally for free speech for a long time, that we actually undergirds our legal protections. So if that culture goes the way of the dodo bird, at some point the legal protections will as well. That's what we're talking about when we talk about free speech here. We're not talking about literally the First Amendment, just to clarify that for people. They have a dystopian vision of free expression where they get to say whatever they want about anyone, no matter how hateful and dehumanizing they are towards MAGA voters or Republicans or whoever. But if you say anything that offends them, you're doing hate speech and should be banned, censored, throttled, demonetized. No, absolutely not. America's rejecting your insanity. You guys had some cultural currency in like 2020 in the peak woke era, but people are sick of your shit, frankly. They're moving on. They're moving towards a cultural ethos that re-embraces that kind of American spirit of disagreement and debate and isn't so sensitive and so politically correct. And that, as far as I'm concerned, is a good thing. No matter how angry and unhinged it causes alphabet activists to be. But what do you guys think? Do let me know in the comments, because that was a real doozy, that story. And do hit that like button before you go, and make sure to subscribe.